Hello and welcome to FinextraTV's PREDICT 2023 series. I'm Hannah Wallace, and joining me now to share his forecast for the year ahead is Gareth Wilson from Capgemini. Gareth, it's great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, Hannah. Great to be here.
Really good to have you on, and looking forward to hearing your predictions, especially around cloud migration. What's the progress been there, and the benefits of BaaS and embedded finance, but also we're hearing a lot about this trend, CBDCs, so I want to hear a bit about that as well. So let's start with cloud migration, because that's been a real buzz theme for the last 2 years, hasn't it? So where are we up to with that? What's been the progress there? And what can banks expect from this space beyond the cost benefits?
Well, Hannah, I completely agree. It has been a buzzword. It has been a hot topic for a number of years. And I think cloud was accelerated during COVID. I think we saw a lot of the banks invest in their cloud capability in terms of improving the digital engagement with their customers, getting some of their customers and staff to access whilst at home when face-to-face communication was no longer an opportunity. But we've seen that trend continue. And I think when we look a little bit at the sort of macro environment, whether it be high inflation that we're seeing, whether it be rising interest rates, I think the banks continue to focus on this digital transformation. And for us at Capgemini, we see cloud as one of the key building blocks in that, in terms of enabling that end-to-end digital customer experience. I think from a consumer point of view, they don't necessarily see cloud as important, but I also think in terms of that increasing expectation around customer experience, 24/7 access, again, cloud is a key enabler on that. So I think it remains relevant. In terms of, in answer to your question, where do we stand across the banks and financial services? I think we're somewhat on that journey, but in real terms, we're probably only 20 or 30% of the way through in terms of migrating legacy applications, legacy workloads into the cloud. So I think there's still significant efforts to undertake. I think we're seeing some of the banks declare success on that. Santander is a good point in case. I think Santander have now moved something like 80% of their applications to the cloud. But then we've seen other organizations very recently declare that they're starting this journey. London Stock Exchange Group, their recent announcement with Microsoft and their cloud capabilities. So you can see cloud remains very important. We believe in our Capgemini trends for 2023 that cloud will be a key area of focus. But I suppose we still believe there's much to be done to realize the full potential of cloud and the full potential for the customers in terms of customer experience.
All right, thanks very much for bringing us up to date there, Gareth. And now I want to talk about this concept of platformification. How is cloud migration shaping the platformification journey for banks moving forward then?
Well, platformification, a dreadful word really, but the concept in terms of how do we bring application capability and data together and make it readily available to consumers and businesses. And I think cloud is a key enabler in that context, but also data and providing access to data. Again, when I think about this, I always come back to the consumer. What's the consumer perspective in terms of giving access to our personal data, giving access to our transaction data? And actually, again, appetites are changing on that basis. I think consumers are increasingly comfortable to give access if they believe there's value for them. And again, I think that now that enables this idea that banks can bring, platforms together, taking advantage of that data access to create more personalization, but also to look to enable some of those end-to-end customer processes. Some of the examples, Hannah, that have always been quite difficult, client onboarding, some of that KYC capability and functionality. I think platforms are now enabling that. And we're seeing banks continue to invest. Again, I think a good example would be Goldman Sachs with their transaction banking TXB platform, where they're effectively giving treasury capability to something like 160 countries globally and 120 currencies. HSBC may be in a more, let's say, a more widely understood banking process. They're using NetSuite as a platform to provide access to international payments and accounts payable type functionalities. So I think the combination of cloud and data is enabling these platforms, and I think many of the banks are seeing this as an opportunity again to extend their customer experience, but also potentially to bring some additional products and services to bear.
Yeah, that's right. And there are a lot of opportunities to take advantage of this year around that. And as banks build their BaaS capabilities, they can embed finance into other spheres, can't they? So tell us a bit about that. What are some of the benefits you're seeing for banks, but also their customers and their customer experience?
Well, embedded finance as a concept in terms of, how do you integrate financial services into non-financial services products is seen as a huge opportunity. I saw some analysis recently by Forbes that quantified that as a $230 billion potential revenue opportunity. So I think there's a very real demand, there's a very real requirement, and I think embedded finance, we're learning somewhat from the fintech community. Now, fintechs may have lost some of their luster during the latter part of 2022. I think we saw challenges from a funding perspective, and we saw challenges from a valuations point of view. But I still think some of the ecosystem concepts of fintechs, interoperability, how they can bring platforms together to enable access for consumers and businesses, really enables that sort of embedded finance thinking. And again, I think here at Capgemini, we believe that the banks can continue to learn from some of that fintech experience, and not only from a technical point of view, but some of the agility that they bring, some of the focus on customer and end-to-end process to enable the banks to realize that $230 billion opportunity.
I know, watch this space, I think it's safe to say, and it's interesting to hear about the fintech's role in that space as well. And another trend I know you wanted to talk about today, Gareth, is CBDCs. That's a real growing trend. So how are you seeing the growth around that space, and what are some of the key considerations that you think central banks need to take on going forward then?
Well, I think with regard to central bank digital currency, Hannah, again, I look through the rearview mirror a little bit to see, what's happened with regard to crypto and some of the volatility that we've seen with regard to crypto, and quite frankly, some of the negative implications. And I think the central banks are looking at how can they leverage some of those concepts of blockchain and distributed ledger technology to create, let's say, a more controlled central bank digital currency. And we're seeing examples across the world. I know in Sweden they've launched the e-krona. There was an announcement here last year that the Bank of England are also investigating central bank digital currencies. And I think although each of those governing bodies are looking at this in their own right, I think the challenge for me and the way to think about this going forward is the interoperability. Because I thought, of course, we've seen for financial services, interoperability is a key requirement and a key demand. And I think we're seeing organizations like SWIFT now work with multiple central banks to see how they can connect not only central bank digital currencies, but some of the traditional currency transactions as well. And actually, interestingly, here at Capgemini, we view that decentralized finance, central bank digital currency, interoperability, again, being a key area of focus for 2023.
There's a lot to look forward to, Gareth. Thank you so much for sharing your predictions, and looking forward to catching up further down the line and reflecting on those as well. But we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much again. It's great to see you again.
Thank you.